Hari Om. Let us continue with the topic of Ashrama Dharma, in which we have come to the point where Swami Paramarthananda is using an example to illustrate the point of how an individual must be refined through the process of education. Looked at from the angle of how our scriptures look at education. So Swamiji uses a beautiful example to illustrate the point. He takes the example of mining metal ore from the earth, which in the initial stages is crude, isn't it? And needs to be refined. The metal ore needs to be refined if it needs to be useful to us. It only remains potentially useful until it is refined. The metal ore has to be subjected to a process of refinement. It is this refined metal alone that can be effectively put to use. Therefore, a metal has to go through two births, as it were. Two births. The first is when it is born of the earth, and the second is when it is refined in a factory or in a smelter, as we all know. It is only after the second birth that it becomes useful. Wow, what an example! I mean, it's a very loaded example, as we will see. Similarly, when we are born of our mothers, our first birth is unrefined, crude, and only potentially useful. It is ill advised to enter society at this stage because we are still crude, as is very obvious, unrefined. We must, Swamiji says, we must subject ourselves to a second birth. Swamiji uses the word subjecting ourselves. We must choose. It doesn't happen in its of its own accord. We must choose to subject ourselves to a second birth in which we go through a process of refinement. See, it'll be worthy of mention here why we must choose, because there is a clear factor of free will. That is why our human goals are called purusharthas. The fact that we can choose to do or not to do or do otherwise. We have a choice. We definitely are endowed with a free will. In fact, the human being is what he or she is because owing to this free will. So we must subject ourselves to a second birth in which we go through a process of refinement. This is effected through Gurukula Vasaha, living along with one's guru or acharya, during which an individual gets refined through the process of refinement as directed by the Guru or the Acharya, based on, of course, our scriptural teaching. Thus, our scriptures prescribe that human beings must go through two births: janmas, birth being janma, and become dvijas, twice born. We must all transform from prakrita janaha, unrefined human beings, to samskrita janaha, refined human beings. We must transform from crude human beings to refined human beings. The job of education, as envisioned by our scriptures, is to effect this conversion or transformation. Very important. Let me repeat this sentence. The job of education, as envisioned by our scriptures, is to effect this conversion or transformation. Manusmriti, as we saw when we were studying our Shastras, the topic of Shastras, we saw that one of the Smritis mentioned was Manusmriti. Manusmriti mentions two sets of parents for us. Two sets of parents. It is beautifully mentioned in a shloka. Shlokas are a method by which our scriptures convey ideas in a manner in which they can easily be memorized and kept stored in our heart of hearts, so that we can have access to them whenever as we go through our lives, our vyavahara. So the shloka reads: Maturagre adhijananam dvitiyam maunji bandhanat tatrasya mataha gayatri pita tu acharya uchyate. Very simple. I think the meaning comes through very clearly over here. So the shloka reads like this: Maturagre adhijananam dvitiyam maunji bandhanat tatrasya mata gayatri pita tu acharya uchyate. The first set of parents are our biological parents. It says Maturagre Adhijananam, through, through whom I am born in an unrefined form. Then I am led by these parents, hopefully, with a lot of punyam that we have generated in our previous janmas. The earlier they lead us, the better. I am led by these parents to my acharya or guru, who initiates me with the sacred Gayatri mantra. Gayatri in our educational system represents Vidya, Vidya, education, Shastra Jnanam, scriptural study. This Acharya is the second father. So in the shloka, Tatrasya Mata Gayatri. So the second mother is Gayatri Mata. And Pitatu Acharya Uchyate. So this Acharya is the second father, as it were, and Gayatri or Saraswati is the second mother. These second set of parents, the Acharya and Gayatri, which is representative of education, convert me into a useful, refined, mature human being. So let us revisit that shloka. Maturagre adhijananam द्वितीयं मौञ्जी बन्धनात् तत्रास्य माता गायत्री पिता तु आचार्य उच्यते. So our scriptures insist that education must include scriptural study, which is why the first stage is named appropriately as Brahmacharya Ashrama, and the student is called a Brahmachari. A Brahmachari. Look at it, so logical, So immediately there is an etymological rationale that is brought in to help us understand how well all our Sanskrit words are chosen to represent anything. The word Brahma here means the scriptures or the Vedas. And the word Chari means the one who dwells upon the Vedas. Brahmani Vede Charati. Charati means walks, not wa- not walks over the Vedas physically, Mahapapam. He mentally travels through the Vedic teaching, which is scriptural education. It's a clear scriptural education program, Brahmacharya Ashrama. This process is called Brahmacharya Ashramaha. The process of through which the student is put through for education, educating, for refinement. Like they say in Tamil, sputam pota tangam, a refined piece of gold which is bereft of all its impurities. To emerge through this process of refinement as a person worthy of interaction with society. The next question is, what type of education should I have for the refinement of my personality? Very important question. What type of education do our scriptures impart to refine the human being? What is the type of education that is imparted? Three aspects are very important and to be understood clearly. Look how systematically, step by step, in a built up manner, Swamiji is leading us through this topic. So, there are three aspects that are very important and to be clearly understood. We will revisit these portions in the upcoming capsules. Hari Om. Om दुर्जनः सज्जनो भूयात् सज्जनः शान्तिमाप्नुयात् शान्तो मुच्येत बन्धेभ्यः मुक्तश्चान्यान् विमोचयेत् सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ